This video was created by VinylicPuma of VinylicPumaGaming.
What's going on, guys? I finally spent some more time playing Doom's multiplayer mode. While I still definitely prefer the single player mode, the multiplayer mode does have a lot of weapons that I'd like to see appear in the single player mode. So for example, guns like the Hellshot, the static rifle, the vortex rifle, and the burst rifle would be cool to use with their own unique attachments for each. Now, before we get into this countdown, I do want to go ahead here and say that I picked these 6 because I found that I play the best in multiplayer with these. Other weapons like the vortex rifle are good, however I just suck at using them. If you are a noob like me in this game, you may find that you like my particular picks. Now, with all of that out of the way, these are what I think are the top 6 best guns and weapons in Doom 2016's multiplayer mode. Number 6, the burst rifle. This weapon reminds me a lot of Halo's very own burst rifle, or more commonly referred to as the battle rifle. And really all we need now is a scope. Now, when fired normally, you get a 3-round burst shot, which is really useful for getting headshots on enemies. It deals a lot of damage. The alternate fire, however, just suits a single projectile, and honestly, the alternate fire on this gun isn't my favorite. Even still, this is a weapon that I wish made it into the single player campaign, though it might wreck some of the more common demon enemies, like your possessed enemies, your engineers and your soldiers, and then maybe your imps as well, because that triple burst would probably just annihilate them. Overall, though, I really like this gun, and I wish that there was a way to use it in single player with its very own assortment of attachments. Number 5, the SIPHON grenade. So this is a grenade instead of a weapon, and it returns from the single player campaign. For those of you that don't know, you can get it in Lazarus Labs in the single player campaign. Now, the reason I think this is so good in multiplayer is because it steals life from enemies and gives it back to the grenade's user. And this grenade is really good for close quarters combat, where you can just like throw it down and weaken your opponent significantly, and you can kind of gain an upper hand on them in that way. Now, it's also worth mentioning that this was one of my favorite grenades from both the closed and open beta for Doom's multiplayer mode. So in that sense, it's not really a huge surprise that I like it in the final release as well. Number 4, the static rifle. This is more of a weapon that's designed to significantly wound your opponent than to actually kill them. That's what your other weapons and grenades are for, is to actually kill the person after you've significantly weakened them with the static rifle. Now, this thing can deal about 60 damage on a body shot, which will ruin somebody's health if they're low or have no body armor. You can also use this to initiate combat with an opponent and then spam your other weapons or grenades to kill them. And that's at least what I usually do. I'll usually use the static rifle and then the plasma rifle. I'll shoot the static rifle, and if I hit, I'll switch to my other weapons, and then I'll just unload until they die. Now, the downside with the static rifle is that it isn't good for killing opponents, and is really better for ambushing enemies, in my opinion. That 60 damage isn't really going to kill anything outright, and in fact, the vortex rifle actually deals more damage at about 84 damage or so when fully charged. You also have to consider the fact that you have to be constantly at momentum in order to get the full charge out of the static rifle as well. Even still, I wish that this gun made it into the single player campaign, as it would have been really fun to use, especially if it had its own variety of attachments. Maybe one that kind of turns it into a shotgun, and then maybe another that increases or like improves the charge in some way, to where maybe you could like charge it independently of just moving or whatever. Number 3, the super shotgun. Now, from an objective standpoint, this is probably one of, if not like one of the best guns for Doom's multiplayer mode. However, I kind of love to hate this gun. But I should still go ahead and say that just like in the single player campaign, this gun is incredible in multiplayer as well. You can really get like 1 to 2 point blank blasts with this thing, and it's an insta-kill. The only problem is that you will have problems getting close, especially with some of the newly added weapons with the final release, like your burst rifles, maybe your vortex rifles as well. This is not a good weapon to use at a distance at all. Now, back when I played the closed and open beta, the super shotgun was one of my weapons of choice because it was really powerful and you could use it with pretty much any weapon and you could just wreck face. Number 2, the chain gun. Now, I've noticed it's pretty easy to get a lot of kills with this weapon, and I think that's because it's extremely difficult to counter this with most of the other weapons in the game. Now, if you're a demon player, it's probably not going to be a problem, or maybe if you have a vortex rifle, it might not be a problem, or maybe even the burst rifle, but I mean, if you're going up against this thing, somebody's charging you with the chain gun, and then you've got like the plasma rifle or something, I mean, let's just be real, you're pretty much dead. I've played in a bunch of multiplayer matches with the chain gun exclusively, and I've found that I will usually do far better than I would have without it. Even with the static rifle, and the static rifle is a gun that I really like to use. There may be some people that make the argument that this gun needs a nerf. However, like I've said previously before, I don't think we need to nerf guns. I think we need to maybe buff other weapons to make them be able to counter somebody with the chain gun. Again, that's just my opinion. Really, the only downside to the chain gun is that you have to rev it up, and you sacrifice some movement speed while doing that. Now, you may try to go for jumps that you would normally make. However, if you try to do it with the chain gun revved up, you may miss those jumps and like fall off the map, like I sometimes do. And finally, number 1, the plasma rifle. Now, this is a really good all-around weapon in my opinion. The standard projectile attacks deal a decent amount of damage, and overall, this gun just has really good fire rate. However, my favorite part is the alternate fire, which launches a radiation bomb that allows you to deal a little more damage per second. And you can actually combine the standard projectile attack with that radiation bomb to get better DPS, and you would be surprised at how quickly you can kill enemies that way. The key is to hit them with the bomb, and then they get stuck on like the surface, and they take damage from that, while you're also pummeling them with just fire from the plasma rifle itself. Honestly, if you haven't used the plasma rifle yet, I definitely recommend you try it because it is definitely one of my favorite weapons. That may be a little bit of bias, and maybe the chain gun is better up against the plasma rifle, but even still, the plasma rifle is a pretty good weapon in my opinion. Anyway guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care and I'll see y'all next time.